let's wrap it up here as we go and head into week 2. There's a massive game lurking on the horizon as one of the Big Ten's really good teams, Michigan, goes down to the great state of Oklahoma to take on the Sooners. Both teams not playing against opponents in week 1 that dominate or could dominate the field. New Mexico, Illinois State. Both of them dominated their games respectfully. But when you look at Oklahoma and you look at Michigan going into week 2, what are your thoughts on what's going to happen to the game here?
Well, first of all, obviously, there's not really much to derive from the 2 games that they had against New Mexico and Illinois State. But I do think that both these teams have a lot to prove. I think that Oklahoma obviously needs to capture a win like this with their brutal schedule in order to build some momentum. We have on the Michigan side of things, Bryce Underwood, who looked pretty sturdy, pretty reliable against New Mexico, even though he wasn't exactly challenged to do anything truly difficult. You get to start building confidence in that young man, and it's going to pay off later on in the season. Blake, right now where my lean is, and you talked about how there wasn't really as much excitement and explosiveness from the run game as one would hope going up against Illinois State. That's a game where you're supposed to just run the ball and end the game. That's one of those situations where that's supposed to happen.
After it was the number 1 talking point last year that your O-line was really bad.
Yeah. My current lean at this moment, Blake, I lean in the fact that of what we've seen from some of these SEC teams to start the season and how Michigan can establish the line of scrimmage, run the football, control time of possession, all of the cliches of Michigan football. I think if Bryce Underwood can start to get rolling as a runner, which they didn't really use him as such against New Mexico, that would be a big driving force for them winning this football game. But I have to see, though, is which playmaker steps up the most. This is going to be a really quarterback-driven game with 2 guys that are very different than one another, but are both incredibly dynamic.
This is what I'll say about Oklahoma. You should be able to line up and run the football in Illinois State. I don't care if you opened it up or not. Here's the thing, Joe, they did not show anything. They didn't. How many times are you going to run an RPO hitch and RPO hitch and RPO slant? How many times? Joe, did you know that they only threw the ball 3 times past 15 yards? Like they just didn't do it. So I don't think they showed you anything offensively. Here's the problem. Oklahoma got outrushed by Illinois State 117-103. 117-103. You have had an issue with this offensive line reverting from last year. It's Illinois State. Joe, it's Illinois State. They can't throw the football. They are a one-dimensional football team. They couldn't throw for 75 yards in the game, and you only put up 35 points on them. Like, what are we discussing here right now? The number one thing right now, when I look at this game, Oklahoma's offensive line. I don't care what I don't want to talk about Bryce Underwood right now. I really don't. We can talk about John Mateer because I do think John Mateer is going to have to do something special here to keep this one close and for them to win it, and he very well might. Joe, I think he's going to be running for his life. You better play contain, and you better find ways to get extensions of the run game. Joe, they had 100 yards. Sounds good. There were points in times where they had more second and 10, second and 11, second and 13 than any SEC team that didn't play a Power 4 opponent literally all week. Like they were behind the chains constantly. I don't understand this. What's going on there? They don't look physical enough. But there is something from Michigan I'm also monitoring. Barham is out after the horrible targeting call in the second half. Did you see it?
I saw people talking about it. I didn't catch the clip.
Okay. The appeal today was denied. Joe, that's a massive break. Somebody
It's their best defensive player. That's their best defensive player.
Somebody from Oklahoma slipped that ref $20. You can't convince me otherwise. Regardless of that, with his absence in the first half, can you establish some things? It's a joke that kid's suspended. It's an outright joke. It was not a targeting. But, Joe, the defensive line for Michigan, they were so freaking good on Saturday. They were explosive as hell. They did a lot of really good things. When I look at it, it just boils down to one thing for me. Is this Oklahoma offensive line going to protect? Because, quite frankly, I saw some really good things from Bryce Underwood. Joe, he showed some of the throws he made showed you why he was the number one overall prospect in the country.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, like, if we're going to talk about first-time starters, I didn't want to say this when Fravel asked the question on the Super Chat. I thought Bryce Underwood had the best performance.
But he was going against New Mexico, so we got to take that with a grain of salt.
I can't say that, right? Yeah. Because it's against New Mexico. There are some throws that none of those other guys can make, that he did make. I don't care if it's against New Mexico. I don't care. However, Joe, they went base defense. They did not do anything special. The thing that I revert to this in that I'm watching the most, what is Brent Venables going to send here? Is he going to confuse this young man? Can they run the football? Justice Haynes, hello. You think my Alabama needed that on Saturday? Because they did. Yeah. I mean, he ran all over New Mexico. So what is Brent Venables going to show this young man that gets him confused? Can you generate him, and having a couple of turnovers will be massive here for you?
Elks brought this up, saying that Venables does to Bryce what Perkins did to Arch. And my early – yeah, sorry, Patricia. So Venables will do to yes. Where I keep going back and forth, Blake, why I think I'm leaning I'm liking the thought of Oklahoma winning this game and winning it somewhat confidently.
Oklahoma?
Blake, we watched all of week one. All of week one. All of these first-time starting quarterbacks going into hostile situations, even the ones that played the best, making a mistake that hurt them. Bryce Underwood's number one target against New Mexico was their starting tight end, Marlon Klein. I still don't know if they have receivers that they can turn to. There was no premier receiver production against New Mexico. So if you do an effective enough job of pressuring Underwood, like Venables will do with R. Mason Thomas and company that hold defensive line, you get in his face and he can't find Klein and you can't generate big plays and they close down the line of scrimmage, I think it's going to be tough sledding for them to succeed. I'm not saying that they blow them out. That's not what I'm getting at. But a home game in a situation where you've got a first-time starting quarterback, his first big-time environment, that has to be brought up because that was the theme of week one. And I think it's going to be a theme for the most of the beginning of the season.
It very well may, but Joe, you know what helps Michigan, though? I don't know if Oklahoma's going to be able to run the football. Like, I don't. And that worries the hell out of me. If you can't run the football, you're going to keep giving them short fields. Or John Mateer is going to have to be special. And, Joe, if he is, that's probably where it's going to lead them to winning this game.
I think that Mateer showed us some really big positives on what the passing game can be. You know, the connections with Keontae Lewis stepping up as the second guy alongside Deion Burks, who, you know, I love Deion Burks. I think having an established receiver room is where Oklahoma fans should feel pretty strongly going into this game, is that, like, you've got weapons. But that, to me, is the deciding factor. Is if Oklahoma can't run the ball and they're running into a stone wall every single time, then that keeps Michigan in it. At the end of the day, Blake, here's the simplest concept that we talk about with Michigan all the time. If this game is low scoring, Michigan wins the game. If this game is low scoring and you keep them in it within one score, 3 points, whatever it is, the whole game, Sherrone Moore and that team is going to find a way to sneak that thing out.
They're going to Ohio State you.
Yeah. Yeah. They win games that they're not supposed to all the time because they keep the score low and then they sneak one turnover or something that gives them the edge. You got to try and separate early. You got to be aggressive early. You got to find a run game. Those are the biggest keys for Oklahoma here.
You know, Alex, his point was one of the talking points that I wrote down. How much did teams open it up? Does Michigan want to open up? How much is – here's another thing too. How effectively is their running game? I know that I mean, Oklahoma kind of felt like defensively they were pitter-pattering around a little. Can they stop Michigan from running the football effectively will be a big question. But, Joe, I hear what you're saying. I'm not putting a pick in for this one yet. The only thing that I would say is that O-line scares me for Oklahoma. And I do think that their defensive staff's going to put some things together for him that maybe he hasn't seen. So, look, this is interesting. You brought up an interesting point about the SEC. Some of these teams in the SEC are going to have to start showing up. You can't let Bama take a punch in the mouth like that and think that, look, man, it just can't happen. So we'll see.
I do think that that's an interesting narrative to follow. But actually, by the way, in all seriousness, like it's actually kind of crazy to think that the power struggle for conferences now lies on the shoulders of Oklahoma. The SEC needs Oklahoma to win this game because if Michigan wins this game on the road with a true freshman quarterback, could you imagine the narratives that are going to come out of that?
I will say this. I think it's a little overreaction from one thing. The SEC was the only team to have 6 games Power 4 versus Power 4. They went 4-2. Okay? Big 12 went 2-1. We don't know that yet to the full extent. Let me throw this your way, though. People see the A on the they see the A on the jersey and the number on the side of the helmet, and they think, "Oh my God, Alabama goes down." That team lost to Vanderbilt last year and got pushed around. Like, did LSU show something? Is Georgia who we think they are? What is Auburn? What is A&M? Yeah. Like, there are a lot of teams that we don't know about. Just because Bama lost doesn't mean a conference is bad.